Dear brothers and sisters, I would like to welcome all of you who've joined here today. And I know many of you have come from South America and other parts of the world. So it's a joy to have all of you back here at the center. Yes, it's been a long 2 years, and we're hoping to have as many of our brothers and sisters from all different parts of the world to be able to join us here in the center in the next few weeks. So there are many people who have questions, and questions come through all kinds of means. They come from children and they come from adults, and we try to address a few of them every week so that we all can get a better understanding of how to lead our lives so that we would be able to fulfill the very purpose for which we've come into this world. Questions are a way by which our mind gets satisfied. Questions are a way by which we try to know about things that maybe we don't understand. And so questions and then answers is a good way of getting to know the intricacies of the path. So let us address a few questions that came this week.
How can we remain focused on God amid life's distractions?
Our attention, which is the outer expression of our soul, is going out into the world through our senses. And so, as our attention goes into the activities of the world outside, then we find ourselves entangled in the attractions of this world. The key to focus on God is as follows. We need to realize the very purpose for which we have come into this world. We have an example coming from the life of Singh Ji Maharaj. So when he was very young, actually when he passed his matriculation examination, he pondered on this question. He says, what is it that I should be doing in life? And that's a question that we all need to answer for ourselves. And so he pondered on it, and he came up with the answer that God first and everything else next. So we also look at our lives and see what is it that is important in life. Then we realize that knowing God is the key to this existence. Being with God is what our goal is. And so, if the goal is straight for us, then we will be able to focus on the goal. So the key is to realize what our true purpose in life is. And once that purpose in life is clear, that what is important is to have a soul be one with God, then our attention definitely will go towards God. As a rule of thumb, anything that takes us toward God is good. So we'll be involved in those activities that are taking us towards God, and the activities which are taking us away from God, which are the attractions of this world outside, will automatically start to fade away. So the key is to be able to get to that understanding and then put this into play. Now, focusing on God comes in the following manner. The first thing to focus on God is to do Simran. Simran is repeating God's name. And so as we repeat God's name, our attention goes towards God. And as our attention goes towards God, then nothing on the outside can distract us. The other thing that helps us focus on God is meditation. As we meditate, the distractions that may come to us through our mind, which will take our attention put in the world outside, can be stalled by doing our Simran properly. So as we meditate, then also we are going to be focused on God, because now we are withdrawing all our attention from the world outside and focusing it within. So first realizing what the purpose of life is, and then by putting into play activities which will focus our attention on God, are the keys to be focused on God and not be distracted. See, in the old days, people would do generally physical work. We didn't have these buildings, we didn't have these um, software development that we have today, we didn't have that much thinking to be done. And so most people were working on the farms or working by hands. And so the saints would always say, whenever you're working with your hands and whenever you're not doing any mental activity, you should be doing Simran. The purpose was to have our attention be focused on God as much as we can. So even in this day and age, when there's a lot of mental work that we all do, whenever we're not doing any mental activity, then we should be doing our Simran. And when we do Simran and focus on God, then the distractions of the world outside fade away automatically. To keep our focus on God, first we should realize what the purpose of this existence is, do our Simran, focus on meditation, and another thing that helps is like selfless service. The third aspect would be when we help someone else, they're in need, then that also is a time in which the benefits are tremendous.
How can we deal with people who bring turmoil into our lives?
We all feel that in our lives there are people who bring turmoil. And the best thing to deal with the situation, I feel, is to be able to first look at ourselves. Turmoil comes into our life when we have things happen that we don't expect. And so it is very difficult to change someone else. We all should realize that things are not the same as we expect them to be. Right now, we're all living in the Chicagoland area, we're all here, right? And there's a saying in Chicago that if you don't like the weather, wait for 5 minutes, it'll change. That's what I heard when I first came to Chicago. And so, what is very interesting is, if the sun is out a lot and the temperature gets to be in the 90s, as it will in the next few weeks, then we all say it's too hot, it's too hot, it's too hot. And then, if the rain will come and it will last for 2-3 days, and say it's raining too much, there's too much water all around. Our roof is leaking. Okay. And if it gets the winter time, it snows a lot, we say, oh, why is it snowing so much? When is the spring going to come? But if we think, oh, the sun is out, it's so nice, we're getting so much more vitamin D than we did before. And we think it's raining, boy, it's the grace of Hazur Baba Savan Singh Ji Maharaj. And if it's snowing, then what do we think? If it's snowing, we think the grace is coming in leaps and bounds. So it's a question of us understanding the situation and relating to it. There are many people, they get angry when someone else is doing things or saying things which are contrary to what we want them to be. And we get angry at them. And then we blame them. We say, oh, they are the ones who made us angry. But we should realize the only one who's in control of ourselves is ourselves. No one else can make us angry. We are the only ones who get angry. The other person is saying things or doing things, whatever they believe or whatever they want to say, but it is for us to be in control of ourselves. So the key to deal with people with turmoil is to control ourselves, is to have a good control on ourselves. And then when they come into our life, we have to ignore them. We have to have them not change our behavior, let's say. There's this, from one of the writings of Hazur Baba Savan Singh Ji Maharaj, in answering a question, he said very beautifully, he says, if others are doing bad things to us and they don't change, so we should not change our good behavior and become bad in retaliation. So we need to be calm, we need to be stilled, and to get into that state, we meditate. So when we put meditation into our life, then we'll find that there'll be stillness in us, there'll be calmness in us, there'll be a better understanding of our relationship with the Creator and with everyone else. And so we'll understand that the change is a part of life. Okay? And we'll understand that if turmoil comes into our life, something that is we're not expecting and someone's done something and sending it to us, then we'll be resilient. And so our responses can be two. One is, if turmoil comes into life, if someone's angry and we get angry at them too, so we put more fire into the turmoil. The other is that we throw water on it, we are stilled, and we don't let it go any further. Even though there's turmoil coming in, we don't react in a manner so that it gets to be more and more and more. And when we deal like that, then things get better for us. And to deal like that, we need to have so much stillness and peace and calm within ourselves. And when we meditate, we do get calm, we do get peaceful, we are in a state in which we can deal with any anger or turmoil that comes into our life.
How can we deal with change?
Change can be very overwhelming. When a child goes from, let's say, nursery school to middle school and from middle school to high school, all of a sudden there are many changes. Okay? And like I was saying before, changes are a part of life. When we look in the world that we live, there's a change every day. Every day the sun comes out in the morning. Those of you who get up in the morning, you look in the horizon, I see the changing of the colors. And it's not the same every day. Every day is different. Every morning, look out. Sometimes there'll be a few clouds there, and you'll see some pinks, and you'll see some hues of orange colors, or you'll see some red colors, some yellow colors. And there'll be other days where it'll be so clouded, you'll maybe see just grays. And as the sun goes up all day long, things change. If you have plants around your house, I mean, the buds are coming up and the leaves are moving based on the wind. So everything is changing. So change is a part of our existence. And they say that the cells in the human body and in other bodies too are changing continuously also. So we live in an environment which is changing. And so we have to train ourselves to understand that things are not going to be the same. Generally, we get so used to something that when a change comes in, we think it will be bad for us, not realizing that the change might be good for us and everything is changing anyway. Okay? And so, as we grow, we need to understand that we are living in an environment which is changing all the time. Everything is changing. There's day and light, and there's darkness, and there's light, and there's all kinds of changes that we find. The weather changes all the time. And so, as a child which is growing up, the relationships, as they also go into the teen years, as they're going from the 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, they find many changes happening in their body, and they find many changes in their relationships as they grow. Okay? And so we need to let our children know that change is not bad. The change is a part of life. It comes in life and it's good. Even, and we can make them understand and tell them, okay, you were a little kid like a toddler, right? And your toddler is laying down and he can't do anything and you're moving your feet up and down, you want to get up and he can't. But then in a few months you did get up and you started to walk. And the child is very happy as it starts to walk around because then it can put its hands in this stuff and this stuff and this stuff and make the life of the parent miserable and change, you know. So they can do that, and then they start to go to school, they learn, and then they can do other things. So change is not bad. Change is like good in our lives. We just have to get used to it, and this is where we can't let the change in our lives overwhelm us, because if we are so afraid of the change in our lives, then we are not going to be able to do anything. Now, some parts of life we want to keep similar. Let's say getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth. You don't want to change that. Okay? That's good to do. Maybe flossing your teeth is even better. Maybe brushing twice a day is even better. Okay? Those things become habits. Okay? Like taking a shower every day is good. And things like that become a habit. So that we need to keep that stability. But we need to realize that everything around us is changing, and we need to look at the good part of that change. If we look at societies, and this is maybe an answer more for the adults than for the kids, many people today gravitate from one part of the world to another. Okay? So they come from one culture and they go to another culture. And things are different cultures. And in one culture, to greet someone, you might be hugging them, and that's your way. In another culture, you just shake your hands or say, and in this day and age with the pandemic, you just say good morning or good afternoon and you're done. Okay? And so when one person from one part of the world comes to another, it becomes very difficult for them. A person who used to getting a hug when they see someone, all of a sudden when they shake someone's hand, they don't feel that they've been welcomed. Okay? But it's you have to realize that this is the other culture. So it takes a while for the person from one culture to understand another culture. We also live in an age where in the old days the families would be together, and the families would be together, then, brothers, sisters, everyone live in the same home. But then as more education came into being and we had the means to work ourselves and financially be stable, the family split up, right? So for someone coming from that generation where families were together, also finds when the families split, they have a very difficult time dealing with it. So change has come in, and so we have to get used to those changes. And so as a human being, I think we need to realize that life is changing every hour, every minute, every second, every day, every week, every year. And so if we don't get used to the changing of a scenario, then we are the ones who are hurt. If we keep on holding on to this is what I did 50 years ago, this is what I did 20 years ago, and today this is not happening or that is not happening, then we are paining ourselves. So we need to understand that change is a part of life. The most important person to keep happy is ourselves. Okay? And we can't let other people or their changing scenarios affect us. If we feel that everything should be the same as it was 50 years ago, that's not possible. It's not going to happen. And so we need to adjust ourselves to the changing environment and see how can we be happy in that state. And so the key is to be able to understand that change is always going to be there, is to understand that change doesn't mean that it's bad for us. We just need to understand the environment, we need to deal with the environment, and then it won't be able to overwhelm us. And so the key that helps us is to find a stability within which is never going to change. And that stability is within ourselves, and that stability is the Creator. Everything else changes, but the Creator never changes. And so that stability we can find as we meditate, as we go within. So as we go within and as we home into that stability, then it gives us the strength to deal with all the other changes that are coming in our life. Because we know that there's unbounded love within ourselves. We know that there's everlasting support within ourselves. We know that there's peace and joy and tranquility within ourselves, which will last and last and last. And then, as more and more of our attention goes within, then even though the world outside is changing, its effect on us becomes very less because we are stable on the inside. And finding that stability on the inside will help us deal with all the changes on the world outside, and it will maybe definitely help us be in a position in which we'll realize that changes on the outside are okay, they're a part of life, they're a part of our existence, but that doesn't mean that that change is going to take me away from my stable state, which is to be anchored in the love of God.
If the root of all anger is desire, how can one become desireless?
As long as our attention is in the world outside, and as long as we operate at the level of our physical senses, then we are always distracted by the attractions or the distractions of the world outside. Okay. And wherever we put our attention, that's what we become. So that arena has a tremendous effect on us. So the key is to focus our attention in an arena from which distractions are not coming to us. Anything that distracts us, anything that we find in the world outside, anything that comes up new, creates in us these feelings of trying to either get the thing or understand it or something else, so that more attention goes into those activities. And the thing about desires to understand is that if one desire is met, it does not mean that other desires will not come up. Chances are, if one desire is met, then you will have another desire, and another one is met, you'll have a third one, and third one is met, you'll have a fourth one, and it keeps on getting deeper and deeper and deeper into states which are then going to put us in an arena in which when they are not met, then we'll get angry. Yeah. So the key is to take our attention away from the activities of the world. And then that happens as we go within, as we meditate. Because anything that we experience in our journeys within, any states that we experience through meditation, are states that make us truly conscious of ourselves. The unfolding of the divine happens as we meditate, so we start to experience more and more revelations of the divine. And as we experience the revelations, we find that God loves us tremendously. And we start to have those experiences. And when we have those experiences in which we find that God loves us tremendously, then we are in a state of bliss like we've never experienced before. And so we want to be in that state more and more and more. So we want our attention to be on God more and more and more. And when we want our attention to be on God more and more and more, then our connection with God is going to get strengthened. And we will be able to fulfill the purpose for which we come into this world. And automatically, our attention from the world outside, or the joys that the activities on the world outside gave us, would be pale. And as our attention goes more and more towards God, then the desires of anything of this world will just fade away. And so as we focus our attention within, and as we connect with the divine light and sound of God, from within ourselves, we get to states where we don't need anything else. We don't want anything else except for God. And when we get to that state, then there are no desires of any objects or any activities of this world outside. And the key to get to that state of desirelessness is to be able to anchor our true self, our soul towards God.
What is the key to effective time management?
The key to time management, I think, is to think what is really important to you. There's so many things that happen. And today, it's very easy to get caught up in so much happening all around the globe. Okay, and with all these special phones that we have, where all the news are now coming on the phones and all this stuff, it's very easy to get caught up. And you Google one thing, and 50 million other things come in, and you say, "Let me find about this. Let me find about that." And then you realize, oh, half an hour is gone already, which you never thought you would need. So I think we need to prioritize our life, and we need to be very careful as to how we spend our time, and we need to be careful that we do not have these gadgets or these activities on the world outside steal our time away. That's the key, I think, because it's very easy to be distracted these days. You see one thing, then you want to find out about it, then that leads you to something else, that leads you to something else, and pretty soon a lot of time is gone. So I think the key is to first have a list of priorities of what is really important to us, and then be able to go and do what we think is the most important thing first, and get as much of the things on the list as we can, and then go to the next day. And so once we have a list of priorities, realizing that we are not sent here to be aloof, that we're not sent here to be negating life, that living in the world is a part of life, taking care of things is a part of life. And so whether you call it a to-do list, whether you call it a priority list, or today, you have all these time management things in your phones and in your iPads and computers, whatever system you use, just don't be taken in by those areas of life which later on we think, oh, we wasted our time in this thing. So we need to be careful of that, because there's so many things out there. All of a sudden, you think, oh, half an hour's gone here, half an hour's gone here, which could have been put to much better use. So we need to be careful as to how we spend our time. And if we do that, keeping in mind, you know, the most important thing is our spiritual growth. The next important is that we're physically fit. The other important is that our relationships are good. You know, you have to see what is really important to you. You need to make a list like that, and then say, okay, what do I need to do this? Then, when we're in the workforce, going to work is very important. You need to support ourselves. The parents who have kids, taking care of kids is very important. And the kids, as the parents grow up and they get old, then taking care of your elderly parents is very important. So we all have to see what part of life are we passing through, and then set up our priorities accordingly, not forgetting that the most important aspect of this life is to have a connection with God, is to know God, is the spiritual aspect of our life. So that should always be number one in our list, irrespective of whatever phase of life we are in. And everything else should be then secondary. If we do that, then we'll be able to manage our life in the best possible manner. Okay, let us meditate for a few minutes. There's nothing better than meditation. Please sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes very gently, just like you close them when you go to sleep. Your eyeballs should be straight, focus 8 to 10 inches in front of you. Those of you who are initiated, please do a Simran. If someone is there who's not initiated, please repeat any name of God that you feel comfortable with. The repetition of God's name should be done mentally and not out loud. I pray to God Almighty to help each and every one of us connect with the divine power within, and to experience the divine light of God within ourselves. We'll be sitting for a few minutes. I'll be getting you out of this meditative state, and my best wishes are with each and every one of you. Please leave off. छोड़ दीजिए जी. Please leave off.